Now we will learn how to use a Google sign-in, but you can actually whatever you are learning, you can actually use it together in a single activity, and combining all you can make a any kind of app that you want. So let's start with the sign-in, how to make a Google sign-in basically. So it should implement Google API client or on connect field listener, comma means and, so it should implement this and view dot on click listener. Then you must declare these three private variables, or rather you must declare this compulsory variable Google API client. You may, for my example, I have also declared text view and a progress dialog. I have used in my on create method, I have inflated my layout which looks like this. Like this. So it is a com.google.android.gms.common.sign button, which is the element. This is the layout element I'm using a sign button and a text view. And also you need to first ensure that you add a reply plugin com.google.gms.google services here, and you must also go through the tutorial, or rather the procedure for Google sign-in online, not because you want to know how to make a Google sign-in, but because they give you a unique file, a JSON file, which you must include in your app module, which will contain your unique Google Play app ID. So basically it is your Google ID which will be used, the Google application ID from the Google Developer Console rather. So I will show you, this is my Google services or JSON file you have to include in the app directory of your Google app. And also this must be, ID must be kept secret so as to prevent misuse of it. So in your first you can get the text view, then you can get the sign in button, and then you can set on click listener this. Meanwhile you can also create a Google sign in options object, GSO is equal to new Google sign in objects, Google sign in options dot builder, Google sign in options dot default sign in dot request email. This is the scope. You can request many scopes during sign in dot build. Then you can create a client, new Google API client dot builder this, which is the context dot enable auto manage this, and then again comma this, which has the on connect field listener dot add API author dot Google sign in API. Then you have to pass the geo, so that's the Google sign in option, and then dot build method we have to call. Then in the sign in button we have to get it a reference to the sign in button. Then we can set it the size of it, and then we can set the scope of it by GSO dot get scope array. So basically GSO is the Google sign on options we created just earlier. Now in the on start method we have, which will be called by this Google predefined sign in process, we have a super.onStart, and this onStart is basically a part of the Android activity lifecycle, and then it is necessary for you to put in this code in the onStart for Google sign in to work. It's optional pending result Google sign in result. This is the class, and the object of this is OPR is equal to on.google sign in API dot silent sign in client, and this you have to check OPR dot is done. Now you may be seeing that I am just telling you these things from the code, but basically this is the predefined Google syntax which we have to go through, and we cannot change it because Google has predefined this all. So now as you can see from the code, you can have a look at how it is done. So now you can create a new Google sign in result, and you can get it by this opr.get, and then you can use another function to handle the result, or write code here to handle the result. Now if OPR is done is true, then this code will be executed. Otherwise we'll show progress dialog, and then we will hide the progress dialog when all result is there. We'll use a new result callback, not a new view or on click listener. You have to also override on activity result, as you are already implementing Google API client dot on connection field listener, and you have to accept a int request code, another int request code, and an intent data. You have to call the super method as you are overriding, and here it is a must to do so. And if you have to check if request code is equal to sign in, then you have to see the result, actually get the result, and then call it to the function handling the result, or you can define a code. This is the function that is handling the result. So it just first it puts it into the log, and then it checks whether if the sign in is success, then it like gets the Google sign in account by using the result.get sign in account method. Then it gets the then this Google sign in account, it uses the dot get display name function to get the name and updates the text view with the same. It calls the toast and it updates the UI true. Otherwise it updates, we call update UI is equal to false. Then we have the sign in method that starts an intent to or.google sign in API dot get sign in intent with the parameter of client, and then we start the activity for result, sign in intent and sign in. And for the sign out, we have auth.google sign in API dot sign out parameter client dot set result callback. Then you have to create a parameter of new result callback with status. You have to override the on result method, and then you have to change the update UI is equal to false, as this is shown in the Google sample. You can also change this code as long as this does not interfere with the Google sign-in. For example, you can change the show progress dialog method, and you have to implement an on connection field. You have to override it, and then you have, if it will be for an unresolvable error has occurred, and if the sign-in will not be available, and then you have to make it like this. And then there is a show progress dialog method which shows the progress dialog method when the sign-in is happening, and there's a hide progress dialog method to hide the dialog. There's the update UI method as we have used earlier. Now what it does is that if the boolean is true, then it finds the ID r.signin button dot set visibility view dot gone. So it basically hides the sign in button and it sets the text sign out. Then you also have an onClick method which checks if the case is r.id or sign in button, and it executes sign in, and accordingly this will happen. So basically this is a trick to execute many sign in button cases. So you can create an onClick and you can call all the buttons you have acquired by this ID. You can set the onClick listener to this, and then you can all the onClick listeners of all these buttons will be calling the onClick method. Then you can check which button is calling, and then you can handle the case accordingly by using the switch case syntax. This was all about Google sign in.